Hey, I'm Jana, the little sister.
And I'm Jeff, her big brother. Welcome to Sibling Rivalry, a podcast about our favorite sport, baseball.
This week on Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast, how are those innings working out for you, MLB?
And when should an in-the-park home run be worth more? But first, a quick look at the SRBB headlines.
You can build it, but no one can come. The anticipated Field of Dreams game between the Cardinals and White Sox has been canceled.
The York Revolution of the Atlantic League announced Boomer, the team dog and ambassador of the last 10 years, has passed on. Farewell, Boomer.
More games postponed due to positive test by the Cardinals.
And former Olympic speed skater Eddie Alvarez, who won a silver medal in Sochi, was called up by the Miami Marlins. He went 0 for 3 with a strikeout in his first game. You can find these and past week's headlines on our website, siblingrivalrybb.com. Remember to rate and subscribe wherever you listen, and tell a friend to listen to the Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast. All right, we've reached the quarter mark of the season. We'll be at the halfway point before you know it. And there's a bunch of weirdness as I watch a lot of these games. A lot of bad calls. Strikes that should be balls, balls that should be strikes, and obvious. Honestly, this whole season has been filled with bad ideas like the doubleheaders and, of course, Xinnings. So we're going to look at those, and then it's time to do a little prognosticating.
Minor League Baseball has been using Xinnings for the last 2 seasons. It was pioneered in the World Baseball Classic and was tested in the Gulf Coast League and the Arizona League before 2018 when all minor league teams adopted it. And Manfred thought it would be a good idea to add it to this crazy 2020 season for MLB.
He wanted to do it before. That's how it ended up in the minor leagues.
That's true.
And what was his reasoning?
To keep games shorter.
It'll speed things up. Now, I didn't look at game times on the, there's been 15 Zinning games, and I didn't look up to see times. I know that 2 of the Angels Astros Zinnings games were over 4 hours.
So I looked up first number of Zinnings that they had, so 15 games like you mentioned, but then I looked at the game time, and if you average all of those out, each game was about 4 hours. The shortest Xinnings game was between Kansas City and Cleveland, and it was 2 hours and 52 minutes, but that's because from the 4th to the 9th inning, they were scoreless. So they were just going through. It was fast. But when you look at the average length of the game, it's still 4 hours. Doesn't seem like it's saving us much time.
All the people who have issues with baseball, how long it is, or people that say it's boring, and I know that's sacrilege, but they want offense. They want things to be exciting. For most people, they just want to see a lot of hits and a lot of runs. Now, for people who are around baseball, and even there are people who sit on that fence between the two, a great pitching matchup is just as incredible. But if you want all that offense, you got to be ready for much longer games because it takes a long time. And there was a pitcher the other day, I don't remember who it was, but it took him a minute between every pitch.
It wasn't Pedro Baez, was it?
No, it wasn't Petey. No, it was a different team.
He's gotten better.
I meant to write it down, but it was taking him a minute or more on every pitch. Well, that just takes forever. There's some guys who just like to get into the rhythm and work. You look at this with the Xinnings, everything that Manfred wants to do is about shortening the game. In the 70s, games were 2.5 hours, roughly, and they've just gotten longer. A lot of that is how much time is spent stepping in and out of the box. How many times do you have to adjust your batting gloves or your elbow pad? And then that's the other thing. You've got so many extra pieces on, shin guards, elbow pads. As soon as you get a walk or as soon as you get to first base on a hit or second or wherever, you got to take everything off. Fat boy's got to go out and get it. So it takes forever.
The 3 batter minimum for pitchers also goes into that, because before you would have somebody like Adam Kolarek who would come in for 1, batter and then go out, and then you'd have somebody else come in and maybe they'd be for two. And so you'd have a constant, just the runway of the bullpen coming in and out.
Which
And
I
so
think
that too
we
would
talked
be
about that a
part of
little
that.
bit. We talked a little bit about that one time where if maybe we eliminated the warm-up pitches on the mound or just said, here, take a couple, boom, boom, and go. You just been warming up for 15 minutes waiting to come into the game. Just come in, throw a couple to the catcher. You feel good, maybe center in. You don't need to throw another 15 pitches or however many they throw when they come in. There's little things where they can speed things up or take time out, but a lot of them are bad ideas. And instead of finding all the bad ideas, how about all the great things about the game?
There's a really good article on a website called Fangraphs, and it's by John Taylor, and it's called So Just How Much Less Baseball Will the Extra Innings Rule Give Us? And he went through and he talked about minor league baseball and how the last two seasons, 43 total games went more than 3 extra innings compared to 345 in 2016 and 2017. And that 3/4 of all extra innings minor league games last year and the year before ended in the 10th, as opposed to just under half in the 2 seasons prior. But he did talk about MLB last year, the season, and he said there was 2,249 unique games, so games that were Xinnings. 208 went past the 9th inning, so once every 12 games. Of the 208 games, 95 finished in the 10th, 113 reached the 11th or beyond, and of the 113 games, 57 of those games ended in the 11th inning. 56 games saw the 12th inning or longer, which is only 2.3% of the season. So his conclusion was this is going to prevent marathon games like the September 24th, 2019 game between the Diamondbacks and the Cardinals that went 19 innings for 6 hours and 53 minutes. But you're only saving 20 to 30 minutes, really. And like I said, I went through an average. It was still a game, still 4 hours. So you're not saving a lot. And the rule could also create longer games because it gives everybody has a chance of scoring because they put the runner on second.
Well, there was a couple of games that I noted, one back between the Blue Jays and the Rays, and then just the one that we mentioned the other day, the Indians and the White Sox. What I did when I looked through all these is I put a thing and said, did it matter that there was a runner on second in the end, or did it matter? In 2 of those games, I looked at it, if the runner from second hadn't scored and then another runner scored, they would have continued on. If only one runner had scored, it would have continued on to another inning. But what I figured out just in my own process, in 7 of the 15 games, almost half, it didn't matter that there was a runner on second because they scored more runs. So that runner may have scored and technically would have been the go-ahead run. But like the very first extra inning game between the Angels and the A's, they ended up loading the bases and then there was a grand slam. So without the lead runner or the runner on second, they still win. But some of these have gone to the 11th. And on some of those, I decided I would change it up. Before, they either mattered or they didn't, that there was somebody on. But I looked at the ones that went to 11th or more, like Dodgers Astros, that one game. And then the A's and the Astros also went to 13 innings. The Astros have played 4 Xinnings games, followed by the Angels, who played 3, 2 of them against the Asterix. When I looked at those 2 games, it was like, did it matter because it went long? And did having the runner on second actually play into it? Both of those games, it didn't matter. In the end score, no, the Dodgers Asterix, it didn't matter, but the Asterix A's, it did, because the tying run started on second and then they needed. So I went from there and said, if it went over 10 innings, but the runner on second played into it somehow, whether it was a tie run, there were 4 of those games where they went longer, but the runner on second did end up playing into it. And then there were 4 games where it was with that, the runner on seconds that was the winning run. So I don't know. I honestly still don't buy into it. It doesn't bother me. I don't think about it. It's easy to just let that go by. But for the reason that they wanted to do it, even in this season,
I feel the same way. It's not a big deal to me, but I think it's interesting that Xinnings will not happen in the playoffs. So I think that's also a good sign that it will not be next season. If we have a regular season that we're all hoping for, that this is just something, it'll stay in the minors and hopefully never make its way into the major leagues, other than this 2020 wacky season that we're having. And most of the games, there's been 15 innings a games. 8 of them were 10 innings, 5 were 11, and then the 2 13-inning games. And some of them have been kind of crazy too when you look at, like you said, they weren't scoring, or in the case of Detroit and Pittsburgh, they were 14-14 going, or 13-13, sorry, going into extra innings, and then Detroit won 17-13. So that would probably be exciting maybe there, but some of these other games, like the Kansas City Cleveland game where it was scoreless from fourth inning to ninth inning, I know Mike Clevenger tweeted about it and said it was crazy. He said a little bit more than that, but he said it was crazy, and that he just didn't like it. Tampa Bay manager said he liked it, but that's when they won in extra innings. But then 5 days later, they were in extra innings and they lost. So maybe he didn't like it that day. Right.
Not as fun anymore. Well, as this crazy season goes on, we'll see how I think the Xinnings will continue on. Someday it may very well become part of the game permanently. But the minor leagues have always been a place for gimmicks to get people to come out and watch the games. There's players who will always play in the minor leagues. They can be part of all that. The guys who are working their way up can come and play with the big boys in the real league. Now, the other thing that I found to be kind of weird is this playoff setup. And we were going to talk about this last week, but we didn't really get to it. The playoffs, and I was trying to read because I was looking at who would be in the playoffs right now. The season ended today. And then I started looking at I knew that there would be tiebreakers would not be like normal. It'd be head to head. So if the Padres and the Mets both have the same record for the wild card, then it would be what was their head to head record. And then, there's a lot of other things that go into it here, because unless it's two teams from the East or whatever division, the same division, there's no head-to-head records between a West and the East or Central. So there's a whole bunch of things like, well, then what was the record in the last 20 games? What was the record in the last this? It made my head hurt. So when I looked at the thing for who would be in the playoffs as of today, I just looked who's on a winning streak right now, who's won the most of the last. When you look at the standings, it'll just say 1-3 or lost 4. So I just took that and said, okay, if they've got a identical record. So right now, if the playoffs started, and this is in order of seedings, because the first round will be 1 through 8. The highest seed will be the home team for all 3 games. There's no back and forth. So the National League, it would be starting with the number 1 seed, the Chicago Cubs, followed by the Rockies, then the Marlins, the Dodgers, the Braves, Milwaukee. So the first 3 are for the division first place teams. The next 3 by record are the second place teams. And the last 2 would be the wild card, I guess, which would be San Diego and the Mets. The AL would be Oakland, then the Yankees, Minnesota. The number 4 seed would be Detroit, number 5, Tampa Bay, number 6, Texas, number 7, Cleveland, and number 8, Baltimore. Now, the thing that stands out to me is the 3 worst teams from last season, the Tigers, the Marlins, and the Orioles, are all playoff teams this year. We said they'd be wacky this season. 2020 would be weird. And so far, of course, we still have 3/4 of the season to go. So why don't you take it? You start off with the NL. Who's your 8 teams to make it?
So I used my Magic 8 Ball. I had it next to me. I was shaking it. I think I have it in order from 1 to 8. So I have the Dodgers, San Diego, and Colorado, Braves, the Cubs, the Reds, the Mets, and the Marlins. These are the teams that I would see from the National League going in. I'd have to go back and seed
Now,
them.
who, if you're looking at it from that, who are your 2 wild card teams, your 7 and 8 seed?
Probably the Mets would be 7, and the Marlins would be 8, maybe.
Okay. I'm not sure about the Mets, especially after some recent news that we'll get into a little bit later, but that's not bad. I mean, they're not a bad team, and they got some good pitching. Here's what I saw, and I did mine in the 8. Atlanta is the number 1 seed, followed by Chicago, and then the Dodgers, followed by Colorado, Miami, and Milwaukee. Those are the second place teams. So 4, 5, and 6. And then my 7 and 8s would be the Padres and then the Reds. And I looked at it from the standpoint that the Reds pitching, I think that's going to help work them into a better record.
Well, it's not much different. The only difference we have is I don't have the Brewers. I have the Mets. That would be the biggest difference between the two. For my AL, I must have the Magic 8 Ball must help me here. I have the Yankees, the A's, and the Twins. So those are division right there. I do have the Rays, the Orioles, the White Sox, the Indians, and the Red Sox. I put the Red Sox in there. I know that they're not probably on anyone's list, but I think they might sneak in there. And I did look at records in standings, but I also looked at player performance. This is probably why I'm not very good at fantasy baseball, but I just, when I looked at it, I did get the Yankees, A's, and Twins, at least the 3 divisions that I think will be division winners.
Yeah, I agree with those 3. In fact, those are the first 3 that I had in that order: Yankees, A's, and Twins. Then my second place teams were the Indians, the Rays, and the Astros. And based off of what you just said, I looked at the West, and as much as I hate leaving the Angels out, I don't see them getting there. Although they have the personnel to make it happen. I also, in seeing this last weekend, the Rangers and the Angels play, and then also seeing the Mariners, I don't see that those 3 teams have it, whereas Houston, as the Asterix have guys who aren't performing up to what they've done in the past. Jose Altuve is a mess, but here's a team that can turn it around and has a firepower that could actually move up. I don't see them overtaking the A's, but they'll be second. And then followed by the White Sox and the Tigers. I think the Tigers have a strong enough record right now that they can maintain it, and that's going to be it. We mentioned this, I think, at one time before. The Centrals, both the NL and AL, we believe will be the hardest one to predict, because when you look at it, the Cubs are running away, Minnesota's running away, everybody else is kind of in the pack together. So it's just going to be a matter of seeing how it all shakes out.
Also throw in the Cardinals, who are currently not playing because of coronavirus positive test in their clubhouse. How is that break going to affect them?
Let's move on to the NLDS, the division series. Which 4 teams will be there and who makes it out?
I have the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Rockies, which is probably a little crazy because they tend to choke when they get into the postseason, but they seem to have something going on there in Denver, and the Braves. So I guess some of your usual suspects.
Yeah, those are all pretty much the normals. And then who's going to the championship series?
The Dodgers and the Braves.
Okay. And which of the National League teams, based on your 8 ball predictions, is going to the World Series or the COVID-19 championships?
The COVID-19 championships, I'm going to go with my team, the Dodgers. I hope on this time, as I've announced it, that I am not jinxing anything and that the Dodgers continue to play, but they have it in them. They've had it in them the last 7 seasons, and if they're going to win it, they might as well win the COVID-19 championship. They need to do it.
All right, so they're going to the World Series according to you and the Magic 8 Ball. And you can just blame the Magic 8 Ball if they mess it up. I'm surprised you even gave a guess regarding the Dodgers.
I normally don't. I'm very superstitious.
How many times in the last couple of weeks have I said something? I said, "Oh, did you see that?" And you're like, "No, I'm not watching." I'm not. And when they were playing Arizona, you couldn't watch it because of the blackouts. And you're like, "I'm not even listening because they lost the last time I listened." Jinx. I'm like, "Well, watch a different game then. Watch some baseball." No. Because if I'm watching a different game, then they think I'm betraying them and it throws them off.
That's right. And they know that I'm watching a different game and I'm not sitting in the right position, in the right chair. I'm messing it all up.
All right. All right. So let me give you my National League.
All right.
I have Atlanta taking on San Diego. And then I have the Dodgers taking on the Rockies.
Oh.
Yeah, so 3 of the teams, because of this format, will be from the West.
Yes. And I can see San Diego in there.
Look the strongest.
They do.
Overall. And then in the NLCS, the Braves and the Rockies.
Oh, wow. They would be interesting to see. The Rockies, they've always gotten so close. They've been in the wild card, and then I don't know what happens. They choke.
I thought about that, and I kept going back and forth, and I thought the Dodgers are a logical choice, but I also think maybe at some point the Rockies are going to go, we're either going to do this or we never will.
Well, it's interesting, too, because the Dodgers and the Rockies have not played yet this season. They won't play until the middle part, or actually not even the middle, for the end of the month. So that series will be interesting to see.
We'll see. And so that puts the Rockies into the World Series. Let's talk about your AL picks. Mine, all courtesy of my mood ring. How did yours shake out with the 8 Ball?
Yankees and Cleveland, A's and Twins.
Wow, that's what mine are too. Exactly.
Really?
Who goes to the championship series?
The Yankees versus the A's.
I am half there with you. The mood ring went kind of that dark blue. And then when I asked it about the next game, it stayed dark blue with a little gold tint, which I've noticed the Twins have this gold tint on there. So I went Yankees Twins for the championship series. Your AL champ.
The Yankees.
Okay, so the World Series will be the Yankees and the Dodgers.
Classic World Series.
I'm going to go with the Twins to win the AL. So I've got the Twins and the Rockies.
Ah, all right.
In a
and
World
I'm going to
Series
root for the Twins.
Manfred is going to hate.
Low markets, small markets, medium markets.
This is the perfect World Series for the 2020 season.
It really is. When you have a classic, if I'm going with the Yankees and the Dodgers, that really is for a bigger stage maybe than the COVID-19 championship. So yeah, 2 teams that most people don't have on their radar, and the Twins are doing really well. They've got Kenta Maeda in there, who I'm happy for him. He was a Dodger, really like Kenta. He was a starting pitcher with the Dodgers, but he also went in the bullpen. He always did his job, but you could always tell he was a little unhappy. He always wanted to be in the starting rotation. He's in a starting rotation now, and he's doing really well. His ERA is proof of that.
And he'll get to go to another World Series while his teammates will not.
True.
Former teammates. But you know what? To me, it was like, well, if there's a season they don't make it, being the Dodgers, oh well.
Right.
All right. So Minnesota, Colorado, for me, you say the Dodgers are going to win it versus the Yankees. Is that what you said?
Yes.
I think that the Rockies will win their first championship, albeit the COVID-19 championship, and they're going to beat Minnesota because I just have a feeling Arenado is going to pick it up. He's still playing well. Trevor Story is going to carry that team along with Charlie Blackmon, who's been pretty incredible. So there you go. That is it. Maybe we should look at this again at the halfway point, see if we still feel the same.
Yeah, and if the Rockies did win the COVID-19 championship, I think it would definitely make Nolan Arenado happy. Finally get some hardware.
We still got 3/4 of the season to go. We'll see how this all shakes out. In fact, why don't we go ahead and talk about what your team has to do to make it?
It's time for Dodger baseball.
Before we get to where the Dodgers need to go to get to the World Series this year, we have to take care of a couple of controversial issues that have popped up. And major issues. They deal with nicknames.
Two of the pitchers, Dustin May, who is very recognizable, tall, redhead, likes to go by the nickname Code Red. That's his preferred nickname. I think it fits him, Code Red.
Now,
and I think it's on his glove, too.
And he got the best hair in MLB.
He does.
During the shutdown, he won that award from the MLB. Initially, one of the nicknames he had was Ginger Guard. It's not a bad thing. It's obviously because of his red hair. And there were other ginger connected names. But Ginger Guard was because he has similarities to Noah Syndergaard, the Mets pitcher. But he didn't really like that. Noah Syndergaard, so why do I care what you call a opposing pitcher?
Well, he said it's just stupid.
Right.
Is what he said
like,
about it.
Well, you know, it's just so he didn't care about that. And then I think it was last season, he was fine and he agreed with Big Red would be a good he was fine with that nickname. And then I read that somewhere when he was in the minors, Code Red came up. And they were hoping that the teammate in the minors was hoping that maybe if they called him that, he could get an endorsement deal with the Mountain Dew drink Code Red.
Yeah.
Now, at first, he's still, to me, he's still like rookie-ish because he's still young in his career. I don't think you get to choose your own nickname. And then I saw that two-seam fastball he threw the other day. I said, you keep throwing that, you call yourself whatever you want.
Well, and I like Code Red because when you think of one of my favorite movies, A Few Good Men, you call a Code Red, here's Dustin May on the mound throwing in the Code Red.
Shoving socks or dirty rags a little too far down their throat so they strike out.
That's right.
Pass out.
So that passed out. Well, Manny Machado, he pretty much almost passed out.
He did. Yeah, I saw that. That was such a great. And then against him made it even better. The post-game press conferences, somebody like Bill Plaschke from the Times can go to Dave Roberts and go, "Did you order the Code Red?" He's like, "You're right, I did."
That's right.
You
did. Need the Code Red.
You need him on that mound. You want him on that mound. And after that pitch, which takes us to another guy who has awesome, who's becoming an awesome pitcher. A little bit of work to do yet, but he's also got a nickname controversy somewhere along the way, and I never found out why. Maybe you do. He became Buffalo, and that's a Bruce Dar Gratterall. Let me tell you who I'm talking about. He became Buffalo I don't know. He's just like coming after you. He's just strong and,
He's coming out. Yeah, coming out from the pen, racing out there, throwing 100-mile-per-hour fastballs at you. Yeah, so maybe that's where it came from. I call him Buster for my own
because you
personal
can't say
nickname.
Brewstar.
Brewstar. Well, I like Buster, but
But
that one time
apparently,
I was like, I can't say it.
it's true. Now, he also has said he likes one nickname over another. And this one actually made sense to me. I didn't know about the Buffalo one, but Bazooka is
That
the one
is,
he likes.
yeah. And I would like that one too. I mean, it goes right along with his triple-digit pitches. Bazooka.
It's like a bazooka coming off that arm. And he's got some work to do, but he shows that he'll really be a good pitcher and a reliever. He's a short innings guy. He says he's open to whatever the Dodgers want to do with him, start, close, middle innings. He doesn't care. And I think that's the guy that you bring in. You don't hold him till the end, even when Kinley's not there. When you get into trouble, the bases are loaded with one out in the fourth, bring in Bazooka Gratterall and let him get you out of it. There's a big chance you're going to score runs there. Don't let him bring in your best pitcher then. Don't do the regular, the conventional wisdom, which is we hold our best pitchers till the end. Even though we needed it, that was the highest leverage situation.
Yeah, I think with Gratterall, whether he likes like Bazooka, and I think that's his new nickname. But even if they call him Buffalo once in a while, he loves being on the Dodgers. He has said that many times, and he's learned a lot. And I'm happy that Buster is part of our team.
And with that, let's talk about a couple of good things that happened. Play of the week was just announced the other day. Can you imagine, out of all the plays that you may have seen, and I say you because you only see plays from some team that plays in Chavez Ravine.
Not always. I do see the other plays, but this play in particular, CT3, we're talking nicknames, Chris Taylor, 93.3 miles per hour, throw to home plate. Will Smith with the tag to get out Grisham of the San Diego Padres to win the game. Best defensive play. And Chris Taylor is known for defensive plays, but he kind of flies under the radar. Think back to when the Dodgers were playing the Brewers, and in the division series, was the division series, championship series? Now
that was
I can't remember.
Series.
Yeah, championship series. Thanks. And he made that catch. I think it was Christian Yelich. It looked like it was going to be a home run, and that was going to be it. And he made the catch, did a somersault, came up with his arm raised with the glove and the ball in the glove. So Dodger fans know, but that one, Kenley Jansen came in, and he's supposed to save the game, but it was CT3. He was Superman.
It would have been easy because it was a perfect throw right to Will Smith. If Will Smith hadn't swept back to make that tag, though, he very well could have missed him. The ball beat Grisham to the plate, but it was the perfect throw, great tag.
They challenged the call, the Padres. What were they thinking? What kind of...
Are the guys back in the video room watching a different game?
Maybe.
What in the world is going on? Great throw there. The Dodgers started out looking a little shaky with the Padres, but they took 2 of the 3. Go home. The Giants show back up again, and they looked a little shaky at times with the Giants again, but they ended up taking 2 of the 3 there as well.
Yeah. Looking at San Diego, we had Dustin May had a really good outing in San Diego where he got his first win. He went 6 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts. So really good outing for Code Red, a boost for him, and really showing that he is fitting into this rotation because we don't have David Price, who opted out, and Alex Wood is still on the IL. The other pitcher, Ross Stripling, he's definitely earned his spot. But one of the things in San Diego that really bugged me was Fernando Tatis Jr. And now I see him everywhere as he's the one to watch. He's the next face of baseball. And I get it.
He was player of the week.
He was player of the week, and I can totally see that. But one of the things he did is he hit a home run, and he didn't just hit it. He crushed this ball. You knew as soon as it hit the bat, you didn't need to look to see where it went. You knew it was a home run. And he stopped, and he stared, and then he kind of walked to first base, and then he started going around. And that is something that really bugs me, even on the Dodgers. When you hit a home run, take a quick look and then just run. You don't need to stop and stare and admire. To me, it just makes you look bad. I mean, I love the Max Muncy and Madison Bumgarner and that whole thing, the same thing. Madison Bumgarner obviously doesn't like that either. But
who knew? You and Madison Bumgarner.
Well, but I'm not pitching, so I could see he was upset about that. Now, does Madison Bumgarner, if he ever hits again, if he hits a home run, does he admire his home runs? So he can't have it both ways. He either has to just hit and run. True. But yeah, Fernando Tatis, I can understand why he would be player of the week.
Well, I mean, he's tied. He's tied with Judge for 8 home runs at the major league lead, and then he's like 10 for 23 in his last. Well, he's 10 hits and 23 bats, so he is just tearing things up.
He is, but when you hit a home run, we all know you hit the home run. Just run. It's home run.
Right.
And then the other thing while I was watching the series with San Diego, I am not a fan of Manny Machado. Was not a fan when he played for the Dodgers. I did, root for him, wanted him to do well because he's on the Dodgers. He is got to be one of the laziest players out there.
It's not his cup of tea. Hustling is why. He told you. Why are you still upset about that?
He has no reason to hustle because he makes like $62,000 an hour on the field. Why do anything?
He can't even grow his sideburns in right. Did you see that?
He looks like my 16-year-old. Yeah, I try to fathom, like, what were the Padres thinking when they gave him that huge contract? And he's not the face of the Padres anymore because of Tatis, but he's so lazy. He is so lazy.
Definitely. I think, though, that's a good thing for him because Trent Grisham has really picked it up. Who's their first baseman? That guy has been. He had never played first base again. He's got
his name hardly doesn't fit.
Jerseys. There's another guy that stands out with him just so you can get the rest of the name on there. But he's been doing something. So Manny Machado has really and when Hosmer was playing, he was playing well. Machado's kind of like fourth now in that grouping. And we knew Tatis was going to come along. You just didn't know when. But he's definitely he is a guy to watch. And in the new week, we'll talk about it next week, the Dodgers will get to see the Padres again. So more Fernando Tatis Jr. Now here's my question to get away from singing the praises of another team. Let's talk about the Dodgers. Obviously, Mookie Betts came back after injuring his finger on Sunday, hit a home run, has played pretty well. He's been pretty solid. There's been some other. Justin Turner finally hit his first home run of the season the other night. There's guys on there that are playing consistently. They're up and down, but they're not too far. They're kind of in that middle spot with a little bit up, a little bit down. Still not sure what's going on with Cody. He had a little bit of like a spark. It seemed good, and then it just didn't really seem to ignite. One place that I see two places. First, let's talk about behind the plate. The one thing that is tough to do when, especially for your favorite team, and if you get a favorite player on a team, or there's a player that you like, just something about them, and then they're just not playing well, like the Angels and Albert Pujols. I always root for him, but I have to close my eyes, cover my face sometimes, and then there's the times where he hits a home run, he's one away from tying Willie May, and you want to support all that, but you support those guys, but do you always want them in? And I think that because Austin Barnes has reached a point that we really got to think about, where's Keeper Ruiz? Or how come we didn't re-sign Russell Martin?
Right. Yeah. Austin Barnes has a 91 batting average. He's 2 for 22. He has struck out in nearly 35% of his plate appearances. And I just can't figure it out what is going on. And you can see on his face and what's going through his mind that he's just like, I don't know what's happening. And I'm trying to figure out, where's the hitting coaches? Are the hitting coaches working with him? Is there a block? Now, as far as defensively, he's a really good catcher. He's one of the best pitch framers. And with pitchers on the Dodgers, they have the better ERA with Barnes behind the plate with a 1.55 ERA. Kershaw has a designated catcher, and that is Cuz. So he's going to be out there. I don't think that Dave Roberts has given up on him, but we will see Will Smith probably take the majority of the starts, because when Austin comes up, I hate to say it, but I'm the same way. I'm rooting for him, like, come on, you can do it, but covering my eyes at the same time, because it's like, okay, it's going to be an out. And he's playing hard, but
yeah,
I don't know.
He's
I
not
can't
going to be Yogi Berra. He's not going to be Johnny Bench.
No.
But when you have a guy or a kid on the bench who can do both.
Right.
I didn't look at all of his defensive stats. You told me about that the pitcher's ERA was better when he was behind the plate. I think that that's probably due to the fact that he's more of a veteran. Before, he was a good player because he didn't have to catch. He could play second. You could move him around, his utility. Now you don't really need that as much. You got a lot of guys that can go play second or the outfield. So him being back there, I would hope that there's something that would get in his head to help him rise up to the challenge. If you're not playing every day, you're platooning at catcher, you're not tired because you're catching 8 days in a row. So I think that, you're at a point where you maybe need to tell Kershaw that you need to start catching with Will Smith, because I want the bat in the lineup, even though you don't need, on a lot of times you don't need it. But right now, your MVP is batting just slightly better than your anemic catcher. And then the other guy, and we talked about Cody last week, the other guy that we always seem to go to, who's had brighter spots than Cody has, is Max Muncy. And he's gone from good funky to bad funky.
Yeah, smelly. It's pretty bad. He's 10 for 59. He's got 4 home runs, 16 strikeouts, 9 walks. And it's interesting because I was watching a game and Jim Catt was the he was calling the game. And he said that Max Muncy reminds him of Jim Thome. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. But he said Max Muncy and Jim Thome, they have the same 3 hits: home run, strikeout, and walk. And when you go back and you look at Max Muncy, that's pretty much what he has.
Right.
And
you look at Jim Thome. Jim Thome did not hit for high average.
no,
He hit a lot of home runs, over 600 of them. So, I mean, it's not a bad comparison. I agree.
No.
But that was the thing, though, was that wasn't Max Muncy last year or the year before. Max was a patient hitter. He stayed in there and got a hit or got a walk because he worked the count. He's not been doing that. Now, when I mentioned earlier about a bad pitch, he did get struck out on a pitch that almost hit him just about. It was so far inside, but it was called a strike. It's like little things like that are one thing, but he's swinging at bad pitches. It doesn't feel like he's fully comfortable in the box, just like Cody.
Yeah, he doesn't look comfortable. He looks impatient in a way. There was one at bat that he had in San Diego, and it was just short of, being a home run. And he really looked like he did the kind of the stop and stare, and then it was caught. And in the San Diego series, he was 0 for 10. In the San Francisco series that just wrapped up 2 for 11. So it's not the Max Muncy that we know and love, but something is off, and he knows it. And I know that there's been it always goes back to Twitter. Those, I don't want to call them armchair quarterbacks. That's the only thing I can think of, but it's football, not and baseball. But
we can mix sports metaphors.
We can, right? And he knows it. I mean, he came back and actually replied to that tweet. And it's like, you're not on the field. You don't know what's going on. But yeah, he's another one that seems really off in this COVID-19 season that we're having. And that's the other thing, is I wonder about some of these players, because we've talked about the spring training. It was cut off, March 12th, March 13th, and then a break. And the guys were working out, they were doing things, but then you think, okay, how much is too much, or how much, is too little? Is there a good medium? And then they come back and they do summer warm up, and the summer warm up was really short. So there's something, not comfortable for Max in the box. He does look impatient and uncomfortable, like Cody. I don't think he needs a haircut. He looks pretty good, so I won't recommend that as a prescription.
Well, you know what? If he's there, he might as well just trim everybody
Cody.
up. That's fine.
Yeah, he could go with Cody.
Next week, as we said, they've got to take on the powerhouse Padres, which they've shown they can beat. The Padres are not indestructible yet. And then true rivalry starts, because the Dodgers and the Angels come in the following weekend. So we'll talk about all that next week.
I do want to mention, and this is going to be, I know we have at least one Giants fan that listens, and they'll probably fall off their chair. But I got to say, Johnny Cueto had a no-hitter going, and I like Johnny Cueto. He's crazy.
He's definitely a character, yeah.
He is. And not only was he had a no-hitter, it was his 300th game that he was pitching. And yes, any other time, beat the Giants always and forever. But when Hunter Pence lost the ball in the lights and Johnny Cueto lost his no-hitter, I felt kind of bad for Johnny.
Well,
and for Hunter, too.
It wasn't a normal thing where it was a solid hit. It was a playable ball that landed, 6 feet behind him?
Yes. Yeah. And I just, at that moment, I thought, man, how cool would it have been for Johnny Cueto to have the 300th game be a no-hitter? And then Hunter Pence, I don't know. He just couldn't find it. And I think he still feels bad about that.
I'm sure he's probably, apologizing. He's sending like when a couple has an argument and the husband's sending flowers and gifts to the wife. He's doing that. He's sending Johnny Cueto whatever Johnny likes. He's there. Hey, you need me to shine your shoes, wash your car, whatever you need, Johnny. I'm here. Cook you dinner, whatever it is. I'll take care of that. Yeah, that's a bad way for it. If it had been a home run or something like that, then it's like, well, that's all on you, Johnny.
Right.
But
Yeah.
Oh, well. So, yeah, that's I'm with you there. Did feel kind of bad about that. I've been to a couple of almost no-hitters, and one of them was Nolan Ryan was going, and I've never seen the Angels crowd. Of course, everybody loves Nolan in Anaheim, but I've never seen the Angels crowd boo Chili Davis, who was the one that broke up in a solid hit, broke up the no-hitter. Everybody wanted to be there to see that no-hitter. I wonder how many times at opposing stadiums that happened, because he had a lot of near no-hitters.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Angels, yeah, so remember last week when I said that they opted out? Then they went to Seattle, and they actually won a series in Seattle. They hadn't won a series at all, and they won 2 of the 3. And then they went to Texas, and they won nothing. And all I could do was sit there and watch the game with Pudge Rodriguez and Adrian Beltre with masks on their cutouts right behind the plate next to George and Laura Bush, the mayor of Arlington, the governor of Texas, all right there, all with masks on, mocking all the Angel fans. They couldn't do anything. And the sad part about it is that we saw some outstanding pitching. Dylan Bundy, complete game, great showing, right on it. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, 10 strikeouts in that complete game. He looked really good. He has a 2.08 ERA. He's really turned himself around with the Angels, which is good for the Angels and for him too, but especially for the Angels.
One thing that they're having issues, lots of errors. People are bobbling balls. They're getting through. Rengifo had one the other day in Texas that would have been an easy double play. Griffin Canning had been pitching pretty well. Easy double play would have cleared the bases. Griffin Canning would have been fine. Ends up walking another couple of guys, and he ends up having what looks like a bad outing. But if the defense had got him out of it, he did what he was supposed to. He got a ground ball. He had him ground into what was a tailor-made double play. David Fletcher rarely makes mistakes. He had a couple. Before Andrelton Simmons went out, he bobbled a few balls up in Oakland. And then, of course, we'll get into it a little bit later, the big 4-base error on the rookie. Right now, though, we have a similar issue with catching. We're a little better off because both our catchers are hitting, kind of. One's hitting a lot better than the other. But Jason Castro, who we spent a little bit more money on, we expected him to be pretty much the everyday guy. He's batting around 222. He's 6 for 27 with 1 home run, 2 RBIs. He's walked 5 times. He's struck out 9 times. And that's the one thing that I've seen across the board, but especially with the Dodgers and the Angels, a lot of strikeouts. And the Angels are sitting there looking at pitches that are right down the plate and just turn around and walk away. It's not like they're swinging and missing at a bad pitch or it was a borderline pitch. They're just doing this. And Castro's been one of those 9 Ks in just 27 at-bats.
Question goes back to when I think about catchers. I mean, the Angels have the 2 catchers that they're hitting. There's things that could be worked on. But as a catchers, because we look at, Will Smith, who has like a 231 batting average, is the catcher... Is it more defense that we're looking for?
I think historically, yes. And when you get a catcher that can hit, well, I've always maintained that catchers should be the best hitters because they call games.
True.
They should know what pitch is coming next. But they always have that issue. And maybe it's because they're so involved, like why pitchers don't hit well. They're so involved in the game that their head can't just be right on catching. They can't be Mike Piazza, Johnny Bench, Yogi Berra. But here's the thing. Jason Castro has a lot of passed balls. Probably a few of them are considered wild pitches. And I know a lot of times it's tough because with spin rates on balls, it gets to a spot, hits the ground, and then bounces up. And not every field is the same. So, but a lot of stuff gets away from him. Whereas Max Stassi has been able to block and knock down more of those balls. He, as a player, came from the Asterix last year, couldn't hit anything, has some surgery in the offseason, comes back, and he looks like he can hit like Johnny Bench. He's got 4 home runs already, 10 RBIs, 1 home run, 2 RBIs for Castro, or 4 home runs, 10 RBIs for Max Stassi. He's 8 for 27. So he's only got a couple more hits. He's only walked twice and he struck out 5 times. So there's a little bit of that feast or famine thing, it feels like. But overall, doing a better job, both defensively and they're switching out every day. Stassi had to catch a couple of days in a row because Castro got thrown out of the game early for essentially arguing. Third base umpire rung him up on what was supposed to be a check swing, which it was. And of course, he had some words. That was one of the few times where he really didn't go and had some words. And of course, you can hear everything in an empty stadium. So third base umpire threw him out.
Yeah.
So that's an issue, though. And for catchers, when you clearly have, I think you got to ride the horse as long as you can, ride the hot hand. I think Max Stassi needs to be the go-to, and Jason Castro needs to sit there till he figures out how to get past it. He's not a bad hitter. He's hit well in his career. With this team, at first it looks like there's a bigger problem with pitching, and there was to start it out. They were spotting everybody 5 runs to start. You're not going to ever get back. And then the offense kind of picked it up. We're watching the Angels. The Angels get behind by a couple of runs, middle of the game. Usually it's like, well, that's probably over because they don't come back a lot. Watching a Dodger game, it's not that way. It's like, oh, they probably can still come back, and surprised when they don't.
Right.
So there's a lot of issues. The Angels are 7 for 51 with runners in scoring position over the last 7 games. They've had some hits. They just can't get anything going. Shohei, he hits a little bit, then he can't hit anything. Then he hits a little bit, and then you could see he's having problems with his stance. Anthony Rendon, he's walking a lot. He's got 14 walks, but he's struck out 12 times. He hasn't had a hit since August 4th. He's batting 103, striking out a lot, and they're looking at him. They're not swinging at pitches that are in the zone. Even Mike Trout, in 16 games, the Angels have struck out 142 times, but they're 5th in the league in home runs with 24. Is every time that they score, it's because of home runs. They're not getting singles and doubles and driving people in. They're living and dying by the home run. David Fletcher is hitting .317. Right now, David Fletcher is the MVP of this team. Then Stassi, Trout, Goodwin, and LaStella are all from about 270 and above. LaStella's at 268. And then Castro's at 222. Everybody else is below the Mendoza line. And that's not just guys who aren't playing often. That's guys who are playing every day.
Again, while I'm listening to those numbers, I think about other players, not just on the Angels or the Dodgers, but other teams. And I wonder, is this season one of those seasons it's not, obviously there's something off about it. It's 60 games. It's, traveling is different. Being at the ballpark is different. If that somehow is affecting mentally the way these guys are playing and being impatient in the box, looking at strikes that they could hit. I will say that some of the umpires, they had 11 umpires that opted out. And so some of the umpires that have come in, they're minor league umpires. I'm not blaming, I'm going to blame the umpire for that. But I wonder if that plays a role in it too, because there have been some, and you mentioned it at the beginning, some really like wide strike zones, really tight strike. It's been all over the place. And so the hitters are frustrated, and then they get even more frustrated because they're not hitting. And I just want to think that it goes back to this wacky season that we're having.
I think there's got to be something to that about the season being part of it, because we are seeing a lot of players that aren't hitting. There's a lot of strikeouts. The Angels go through these things. It's not like it's a brand new thing, but it seems to me like they're standing there, even Mike Trout's standing there looking sometimes at stuff. And Mike Trout is one of those guys. What makes him so good is he can adjust pitch by pitch. Not every player can do that, when you're batting. And normally, if he's not swinging at a pitch that seems close, it's probably because it's not. He's got that good of an eye.
Mm-hmm.
But this season, even he's having some issues. We did see a change when he came back. I think the first few games, he was probably more worried about what was going on at home and when the kid was coming. When he came back, he seemed relaxed because he's got 5 home runs now. Overall, he's playing okay, batting about 286. Like I said, the pitching's coming around. Patrick Sandoval, with the exception of a bad pitch to Joey Gallo the other day, pitched really well. Matt Andres, who I was really upset with when he started for Shohei, when he came in relief, pitched really well. Julio Teheran, we got back. He had some issues. They only let him throw about 55 pitches or so, but he was looking pretty good. And I think that had they given it, he would have been able to get out of the inning. You could see the difference that a veteran makes on the mound. He wasn't rattled about anything. He's not a high velocity pitcher. So he'll work you around and then lull you to sleep. He's in that Greg Maddux class where he can be a tactician the way he pitches versus just trying to be a bazooka Gratterall and just blow it past you.
I will say Mike Trout has dad strength now, as he showed when he came back after the birth of his son. So I like to call him Papa Trout now.
There you go. And a few people have called him that. And that's the one thing, he'll be where he needs to be. He'll get there. He'll start carrying the team. But when you get people, I don't know how many times they've had people with bases loaded and they leave them there. I didn't even want to look. I could have looked, but I didn't want to look at what their LOB number was. Because they just keep leaving people on base. The bats aren't coming through. And then, on one side of you think, okay, well, Shohei Ohtani, who I mentioned before, not going to pitch the rest of the season, started his second start okay. He was the victim of one of those bad non-strike calls that would have got him out of the inning. He probably would have had the same issue coming up because then they go after the game for an MRI and find out that he has a strain of the flexor pronator mass, which is near the right elbow where the surgery was.
Yeah, and it's not good news for the Angels at all. Not good news for Shohei either, who really wants to pitch. At the beginning, it was he went for an MRI. He's not going to be pitching for 4 to 6 weeks, which is a season. But now they're either saying it's a grade 1, which is a slight tear, or a grade 2, which is a possibility of a more problematic injury. So hopefully he doesn't have to have surgery again on that arm, because then that could take him out again for everything on both sides.
Another guy who's come up with big expectations, Joe Adell. And the other day when he made his debut on the Angels pregame show, Mark Gubica does a thing, and what's today keys to the game? And one of them was rolling in the deep.
Hello?
Nah, that's what everybody's been saying since. You brought him up. Hello? What are you thinking? Joe Madden, Billy Epler. And then on MLB Network, the lady who does the quick pitch at night, they do a thing, and they do this every night, where they're going to do a story. And then she walks up from like those bus billboard things from one to another. And all of them had something. And then there was a big picture of Adele and like her debut album cover, and all of it, she brought up Rolling in the Deep and said something else, and it was all that connection. So I thought if it's good enough for Mark Gubica and that I could do the same thing.
All right, let's do it.
If I start with Adele, it'll make the singer Joe look bad, but I'm going to start there because there's more to talk about with Joe Adele. Adele in her rookie season, so her debut album, wins 2 Grammys, and that album went platinum like 3 times over in the States, 8 times over, I think I read, in England. And then her next album is crazy as well. But that was her debut with Rollin' in the Deep. So now we go to rookie sensation Joe Adele, top prospect for the Angels. everybody's been chomping at the bit, waiting for him to show up. So they finally call him up from Long Beach. So far, he's batted about 133. He's got 2 infield hits out of 15 at bats. Honestly, the one thing he's been able to show is his speed, because he was able to beat out both of those. But he hasn't really got anything out of the infield. I think he had 1 fly ball. And to me, he seems kind of lackadaisical up there. And it may just be the way he carries himself. If he came up and he was hitting and he just looked loose and free, you'd be like, oh, cool.
He's
hit
not
the ball.
a Manny Machado. Well, Manny Machado isn't his mentor. Is that?
Not that I'm aware of. He hustles, because Manny Machado wouldn't have run down the line to try to beat out the ball.
So that's true.
He runs there. But then in the fielding, and they've made points of it on the pregame shows, that Joe Maddon's been out working with him. To me, if you're major league ready, there are basic things you can do. He's got good speed, but there are a lot of balls that he got to, but he couldn't catch. One play where he's moving towards the ball was his ball, but he never called it out or anything. And Mike Trout thought, well, he doesn't seem like he's got it. I got to hustle over there. And then Mike looks, and here comes Joe Adell. Just watching him, I'm thinking, who said this guy is ready? Who thinks this is a good idea?
I think it's part of the weird season that he probably, if it had been a regular season, he would not have been called up.
But that's the thing. Everybody thought that in a regular season, he'd have been up by May.
Oh.
So they think he was going to be there. And I think a lot of it is they thought, well, Brian Goodwin's not going to be a good everyday play. But Brian Goodwin's been fantastic out there. And he's been hitting well overall. He carried through that first week. We'd probably have no wins, or maybe 1. So I'm thinking this is just a waste of time. Sending back to Long Beach. Well, I get that and we've said this, and everybody said it, all of the announcers, in a longer season, there's things that would be different. You'd be able to let people come in and learn. You'd leave a pitcher in longer than maybe you normally would now. So with Joe Adell, I'm looking at him going, this guy is not anything close to what they said he was. I don't care. So there's some players that were great in the minors, and they just can't hack it in the majors. So the other night, they're in Texas. He goes back on a ball, goes up to catch a routine fly ball. The ball hits his glove, doesn't hold on to it, bounces out over the wall, 4-base error. Some people call it a home run, but it's an error. And at that point, you just shake your head. Like, doesn't this just tell you where this kid's at? And to Mike Trout and Joe Maddon and everybody, they all just, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Things happen. And that was cool. And that's what they should do, support their teammate. All of us at home are yelling at the TV. And when I looked at the Angels groups, they're all like, Joe Adell, I thought he was something good, you know. And then some people were defending him. And it made me look at something. Mike Trout got called up. He got called up in July of 2011. Trout batted 163, I think it was, over the 14 games he was there. He did hit a home run. He did, but he just didn't look good. So they sent him back to Double-A, called him back up in August, and he hit 400 in the month of August. In September, he dropped down and was hitting in the mid-100s. But he showed what he could do. He was playing good defense while he was up. He had 5 home runs that year. And it made me think, when Trout first came up, you wouldn't say, this is a guy who looks like an MVP. This doesn't look like the guy who's great. He wasn't even towards the top of the prospect list. So it made me step back and say, maybe Joe Adell, doesn't sound like they're going to send him down. They're going to let him continue to play, which is a double-edged sword there, because he can either lose confidence completely, or it could just show he's not the great player that you thought he was. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, because the 3-time MVP and the leader of this team started out poorly. And maybe this guy will come around and show us something. So there's bright spots that could be had. The problem is none of them are together, and they don't come at the right time.
I would say about Joe Adell, maybe, like you said, he's not ready. He wasn't fully prepared to come up. to the majors. But all he has to do is go back to 1993 when Jose Canseco was playing for the Rangers, and Carlos Martinez hit a shot that bounced off Canseco's head over the wall. So it didn't hit him in the head. So there's that.
I think, you're right. Those things happen, and that's something to just say, okay. My problem with it was with Canseco just didn't know where the ball was.
That's true.
And he tried to play soccer. So but he clearly didn't know where it was. This was in the webbing of his glove, and then it bounced out. He didn't close the glove. He didn't bring another hand up. It got away. Good, do it now. Because really, I'm getting to a point with the Angels, not that they can't come back and turn this around. Their division, other than the A's, is still really tight. So a good winning streak can change this. And maybe in a couple of weeks, I'll be singing a whole different tune. I'll be a fair weather fan. All right, I'm jumping off the bandwagon. Oh, I'm jumping back on the bandwagon.
I think it goes back to, it's ad nauseum. I know I keep saying it, but the shortened summer warm-up and then these guys coming up and these weird plays that are happening. We mentioned it even with the Dodgers, who have a pretty solid infield, but they've bobbled. I mean, Kike Hernandez the other night, I think it was in San Diego, went to throw a ball to home and hit Max Muncy, it's like crazy stuff going on. And
you just don't see what, and there's been a few other throws like that from the outfield where they're releasing too late and it's like going down and hitting the ground, and there's just a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and when I saw Joe Adele at the end, after it happened, and he put his hands on his head, his arms on his head, and it just reminded me of the little leaguer that happened to, and, okay, you're going to learn from this, and we'll just take it as a learning experience for Joe Adele and hope that he has a brighter future with the Angels.
Well, what I'm hoping is that it knocked some sense into him and he learns how to hit. And if he's going to play right field, he needs to be able to get over into that corner. He needs to watch Mookie Betts play right field. He's got the speed to cover the ground, but he's not doing it. And then once he comes up with the ball, he throws it in. He's got a good arm, but then he just looks like, He looks like the kid that comes in Little League that doesn't get to ever play, but they have to play. Everybody has to play, right? That comes in the last 2 innings of the game and just is like, whatever, I never get to play anyway, so who cares? He was a little embarrassed by that, and good. He should have been, because it's like, you could have made that play. If you're going to be at this level, he's got to step up. But sometimes players, and maybe he's one of them, don't need Joe Madden, the guru. Everything's good, calm, peace. Let's meditate upon this. I want to see just a little more action. I want to see less Manny Machado and more guy who wants to be a solid major leaguer all-star. In 2020 fashion, Major League Baseball is crazy. The chaos is everywhere. And this, I think, is the only season that I've ever asked, when is an in-the-park home run really worth more than one run? And no, the answer isn't because there was people on base. That's not it. In this last week, we had 2. One hit by Cole Calhoun, the Diamondbacks versus the Asterix. And the other one was, and I'm sure Milwaukee fans are very excited because he hit something, Christian Yelich got one. Everybody was talking should have been a ground rule double, or should have been something because of the way it played, or is there some kind of a special rule there because it was nets up and it bounced off a net and the player fell into the stands, and it was like one of those, like the Keystone Cops kind of playing outfield thing. It was Laurel and Hardy or
Abbott and Costello.
Three Stooges. It was one of those things. It didn't look like there was an error. It bounced. It hit off of the netting that's there. That's always there. It didn't go out of the play. And so he got it. But that doesn't make that home run worth more. No. Cole Calhoun, who hit his, and it went, this one worked out well for him because it bounced. It hit fair, but it hit off of a wall and scooted by the right fielder who was in pursuit. And had the right fielder realized that was going to happen, if he'd have stopped and played it off, it would have been an easy double. But because it got away from him, he had to turn to run. Center fielder had to come. What was it, 2 or 3 run in the park home run?
Yeah, 2. I think it was 2 run in the park.
Why that home run should have been worth 5 is because it happened against the Asterix.
That's exactly right.
And that makes it worth more.
And if you go back and look at the clip, it's really funny because it hit the wall, it goes past the right field, then you've got the center fielder, and then that's where the Keystone Cops comes in because they can't find the ball. I think it looks like one of them might kick the ball, and then the infielder doesn't know, it's like the second baseman and the shortstop. I'm surprised they didn't run into each other. It was so crazy. But yeah, he needed the 2 that he got and the 2 runs plus 5. He needed the judges.
I like it. Yeah,
like Olympic diving.
The judges should have been able to award extra points.
Yes.
And at the end of it, he was winded. I've watched Phil Calhoun play for years as an Angel, but he was just like, it was like that's where they should have brought out the oxygen tank and got him some oxygen.
And Yelich, his in the side, that was another one that was crazy. Like you said, it was the net was there. It was almost to me like the net's there and it trapped the opposing player for a little bit. Like the stadium might have had something to do with that in the side park home run.
The stadium came to life and became the 10th player.
That's right.
So that way it's kind of fun to watch. There's been little things like that. There've been some great plays that you get to see if you don't see all the games. Like I said, I try to watch as much as I can so I can see some of it live. That was one that I saw the highlight of. That was a great thing for the Diamondbacks, who have been struggling, that they beat the Asterix, which made all of the baseball world happy. The baseball gods shined down and smiled upon us. And the Asterix are playing pretty poorly overall. And Jose Altuve is just the other day had like 3 errors against the A's. He's batting around 180. And Bregman's only around 200.
It's the guilt. It's eating away at them.
They've got guys that are able to help get them where they need to be, but it's going to take a little bit. And I think that there's some truth to that. And then the whole thing that happened, I didn't even think about it, but they hit 5 players. Laureano the other day on Sunday's game hit Laureano twice, 2 different pitchers. And what I loved about it was, if you didn't see this, Ramon Laureano, the Asterix and the A's are playing, and he gets hit once, like in the 5th inning. 7th inning, he gets hit again on what was supposed to be a breaking ball. And Laureano, as he's going down to first base, is telling the pitcher, and he's showing him the grip. This is what you do. And then he shows him the twist of his arm. This is how you throw a breaking ball. And Laureano's like a center fielder. So it was like it was hilarious. He's doing that. And then the batting coach, what's his name? Citrone.
Alex Citrone. He was out on the top of the steps.
And he's like, doing that. Yeah, you want to fight? Come here. Like in a kung fu movie. Or I saw a thing on Twitter where somebody put a thing of The Rock when he was wrestling, and he, come on, showing that little hand thing, bring it on. And at the time, I didn't realize who it was and watching everything. He's the hitting coach. What are you in there? If the players want to fight about it, that's one thing. Next thing you know, you got a big battle, and all the jokes is that because of the Asterix and the A's battle, Dave Roberts has been suspended for the rest of the season, and Joe Kelly has received the death penalty.
Yeah. Again, if you look back at the 2 incidents between the Dodgers and the Asterix and the A's and the Asterix, what started it? Yeah, okay, he got hit but he was going to the base. Laureano was going to the base.
Laureano, was
Laureano was going to the base.
He may have been talking, but he wasn't trying to get past. The Asterix catcher, Martin Maldonado, was between him and he wasn't trying to push past and go to the mound. He was obeying the rules.
Right.
Until it just got to be too much.
Till it got to be too much. And you have another coach, and in this case, it was a hitting coach, because it couldn't be Dusty Baker this time because he had been ejected the inning before.
Right.
So he couldn't have been barking at the player. But the same thing, he said, Dusty Baker said something not very pleasant to Joe Kelly. And then the same thing here. Alex Citron says to Ramon Laureano some not nice things. And that's what was like, okay, what are you, the same thing. Like, why are you in this? This has nothing to do with you. And then, is behind the 4 players who come out and not social distance at all, totally against the rules.
Yeah, Dustin Garneau, former Angel. And actually played with Laureano at one point, is the one who tackled him when he ran towards the coach. And the one thing that I forgot about while I was watching that, other than the Asterix are a frustrated team, you can see it. They've got a losing record right now. They're 6-9-ish as of the weekend. So who knows what's going to happen? I think they play the Giants coming up. So who knows what's going to happen? We'll talk about that probably next week. But forgot when I was watching all that, they hit 5 players. Well, 4 players, Laureano twice. Why would they be going after A's players? Mike Fiers is an A's pitcher. And who sold him out?
Mike Fiers. Also,
so
you had to. It could have been, and you had to wonder how the series was going to begin, because the first game of the series, a plane flew over the Coliseum with the Houston Asterix on a banner, and they were looking at it and laughing. And
the other day I saw a thing where Rob Lowe, who's a big Dodgers fan, was doing his podcast or video cast or whatever, wearing an Asterix hat.
Yes.
H with the asterisk, not the star. I think they deserve it, and I think that they just need to figure out how to take it. And honestly, they probably would play better if they just went, oh, okay, guys, whatever. And, and go along with it. Understand that whether you think you did anything wrong or not, everybody else does. And you're going to have to take your punishment.
I think the most disappointing thing about the Asterix this season is they had the opportunity to take the high road with Dusty Baker coming in as manager. And instead of Dusty Baker saying, okay, guys, we're going to go out, we're going to play, and that's what we're going to do. We're not going to worry about what you guys did or how whatever happened. I wasn't here. But instead, now you have Dusty Baker at the same level as the players. I always have liked Dusty Baker, but he's really lowered his standing in my book has really lowered to the negative numbers, whereas he's probably below Bregman at this point, because Bregman seems to be one that is like, all right, I know things will happen, take my base, kind of go along with it. But yeah, you're right. They need to they know things are going to happen. They know people aren't going to be happy with them for a long time. And I think even when these players don't play for Houston anymore, there's still the stigma attached to them. So they're just going to have to learn how to get thicker skin. And at this point, their manager is not helping in that
No, and that
regard.
was the exact reason why they brought him in, was because they wanted him to help. So the East, National League wise, still kind of a weird setup, because if you looked at the standings at the end of Sunday or Monday morning, Miami is at the top, but they're half game behind Atlanta. But their winning percentage is better. And I'm like, I don't know. Is this new math? Did I miss something?
It is. It's the new math that's being taught. But apparently, COVID makes you good at baseball.
Apparently.
That's what I've heard.
That's what I've heard too, because the Marlins didn't come back after missing half the season. How many double headers do they have to play? And see, I don't think that's
Infinity.
fair. I don't think that's fair. They got to play for the rest of the season. Every game is a doubleheader for you.
Yes.
But it's only 7 innings per game. They don't have to play whole games. So did they not get a benefit to that?
It seems like it, because when they came back, they're on a tear. I mean, they lost, I think, their last 2 games.
But
I
you're
just
still
don't
only
think it's
7-3 at the end of
I
that
know.
second week.
And
I know
don't
that
think
everybody
it's
else
fair.
has played about 15 to 17 games,
This
and
is
they've only played 10 now.
right.
But
It's
how
not
does
fair. It's not fair. This is what should happen. When the Marlins came back, whoever they're playing, so the opposing team gets 2 runs right off the bat. And if the game goes into extra innings, the Marlins do not get the runner on second.
Ooh, I like it. There you go.
Because they really screwed things up big time. And now you have them with a better winning percentage, but still a half game back behind Atlanta. Again, it's crazy. COVID season is just nuts.
It's COVID math. That's what
COVID
it is.
Math. It's not Common Core. COVID. Yes. It's crazy, but I feel like they didn't. It sounds bad. Like, yeah, they got punished because their players have coronavirus. Yeah, but they
they came back obviously because they've been allowed to play. So there wasn't that much. It's not like that the whole team. They said, okay, you guys can't play the rest of the season.
Right. And they
got paid the whole time that they were out after their own mistakes.
Yes. And that's the thing is it wasn't, we did everything, we were doing everything we were supposed to do. Despite what Eric Jeter says, I still believe that they were not doing everything that they were supposed to be doing. And I think even, going back again, you just look at Don Mattingly's comments that he's made prior to the big outbreak. But they really, as far as the East, they really messed things up. And then also you look going forward in the playoffs. Will they be in the playoffs? Do they even deserve to be in the playoffs? No, they shouldn't because of
the chaos, the havoc that they've reached.
And I guess the Cardinals would fit into that same thing, but they're in another division, so we'll talk about them in a minute.
They're in the K division.
That's right.
So speaking of the East, Cespedes opts out last week. It says COVID-19. We think there was other issues involved. They got word, the Mets did, that another one of their better players has opted out for COVID reasons as well.
Marcus Stroman has decided to opt out for the rest of the season, and he'll do it without throwing a pitch this year. Now, you think, okay, he said the health of my family is more important. What happened with the Marlins and the Cardinals? It all sounds nice, but he has enough service time to reach free agency. Seems very a coincidence as that he would opt out now when he reached his time, his service time.
Well, seems like a good idea to me because now there's no chance he's going to get injured on the field. Plus, if he comes back and doesn't pitch well, his previous body of work is what stands for him. People will say, Marcus Stroman, great pitcher.
Yeah, I'm not going to begrudge his decision, but I do think it's interesting that he reached his time that he needed, his service time, and then opts out. So
I honestly expected to see that from more players, that they would be there, get to their time and go. And it could still happen. They're still postponing games in the Central divisions because of the Cardinals. I don't think that it's above the Marlins to not do this again.
I think you're right on this.
And honestly, the other team I think that would be close to self-destruct, just based on history, would be the Mets. The problem is, and I think that we've talked about this a lot, the chaos of the season, the issues that a lot of the players seem to be having, they're stuck in hotel rooms or they're stuck at home. They're not in their normal routines. So some of that can be an issue. I think there's probably even players that are like, whatever. This season doesn't mean anything. I'm only playing because I'm getting paid. They're not worried about what their numbers are. They're not worried about playing to meet service time. That was one thing that I saw with Mookie Betts. There were players that only had to play 2 or 3 games. Mookie Betts had to play almost the whole season to get there. I forgot about it because he signed. It was no longer an issue. But that's part of the thing. Are there guys that are just doing what they got to do? And I've heard enough players. One day watching TV, Al Leiter, when they first announced the double headers being 7 innings, he goes, well, if that's what it takes to get the season in. I'm like, we keep saying that. That's what it takes to get the season in. Well, if we've got to do all these things just to make it happen and it diminishes the game, which maybe it hasn't diminished the game as far as the technical rules are concerned, but look at the play.
It's sloppy, lots of sloppiness, defensively, offensively. Yeah, where's the integrity of the game after this season?
It's really going to have to come back. I mean, there's just so much. And so many of these teams, there are some players out there that have stepped it up. We stay in the East. We talk about the only team really worth talking about right now who's above 500 in the AL East is the Yankees. And they even lost the last couple of games.
Yeah.
But Aaron Judge, 8 home runs so far. Of course, now they have an issue in that, I guess not, because they've learned to live without him before in Giancarlo Stanton. If there's a team that can do it, they showed they could. Because when Giancarlo Stanton came back last year, he was on the bench most of the time. But I think the Yankees are still, sure, they're 10-6 as of the weekend, but they're still in a position to run away with it. And it's just because they're just a strong team. They've got great pitching. Aaron Judge is one thing. Gio Urshela. They've got hard-nosed guys like Brett Gardner. They're out there to play, and they show up to play baseball. And they don't care. It doesn't seem like they care if anybody's in the stadium or not. Kind of like the way the A's have been.
Yeah.
They're playing strong. The Cubs don't seem to care. The cutouts are fine. The crowd knows it's fine or whatever they have. They're playing well, and I think it'll be interesting to see how the East shakes out in the end. Because right now you've got the Yankees, and then you've got 2 500 teams, a 400 team, and a 385 team. Toronto, a team that you think could really turn it on. And maybe the fact that they haven't had a home place to play, which next week we'll be able to talk about them finally playing a true home game, kind of. Their own, and I think they're ready to play their 7th inning stretch song.
Yes. Let's go. Blue Jays.
So the East is still in that same spot as we talked about last time. The Central is also having their issues, but they've got teams that are fielded like they're stepping up. The Twins are 10-6 as well at the end of the week. So them and the Yankees are right there together. Detroit, as I pulled up, they've got a 6-15, win in Cleveland, which is still home to the best strikeout pitcher this year. Shane Bieber, over 3 games, is 3rd for strikeouts in the first 3 games of the season, 35. He's behind Garrett Cole, who started at 36. And then some guy, I looked him up, but I couldn't find anything about him, had 37 strikeouts over his first 3 games. And I'm still trying to find him. I couldn't even find, I don't know if I'm looking in the wrong place. Maybe you've heard of him, Nolan Ryan.
It sounds familiar.
37 strikeouts over his first 3 games one season. So he leads that, but Bieber's in great company there.
43 strikeouts now.
Because he did pitch on Sunday.
Right.
So in his first 4 games, he had a tougher outing on his on there, gave up a couple of home runs and that. But the Indians, they've got guys. I don't know if you saw their third baseman Ramirez, who scored a tying run there, go-ahead run in extra innings. When it started raining, he was out drinking the rain. And he's one of those guys. He's happy to be out there. It seems to me like he's a good guy to be playing with Francisco Lindor.
Yeah, best smile in Major League.
And Mr. Smiles. So that's going to be, that's going to be a tough one. But I do think Cleveland will overtake Detroit. The White Sox will be another team that I think you're going to see 4 teams out of the Central because they're just that good. And if the White Sox don't make it, watch out for them next year. They've got a lot of great players. And then the NL Central, There's nobody except for the Cubs.
Yeah, when you talk about the Central, and I was thinking about Kansas City, who's just there, languishing at the bottom. They're kind of playing like that cutout that's behind their home plate. Weekend at the Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's. Yeah, it's Bernie. So what the Cubs need is Ferris Bueller in the outfield.
There you go. Kansas City is playing better than a lot of the teams in the Central. Pretty much the worst team in baseball right now is the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the Cardinals have only played 5 games. And recent news, there's no telling when they're going to come back. So we don't know if next week we'll still have any games from them. There are some doubleheaders scheduled. But last I saw, even the ones that were supposed to happen during the week are being postponed. They still need more testing. Right now, I feel like the Cardinals have had a greater impact overall than the Marlins did. It seems like things are getting back to normal in the East. The Central is still completely out of whack. Yeah. And the Cubs didn't play all their games because they were postponed by playing the Cardinals as well.
Right.
But everybody other than the Cubs is below 500.
Yeah. And it's really sad when you look at Pittsburgh. Their winning percentage is 188. They're 3 for 13. And that's just sad. They've taken over the Orioles spot, I guess, as that team, or the Tigers, right, in that team. But
they are this year's Miami Marlins of National League.
Right.
Minus COVID.
There's been 27 total games postponed. It seems like there'd be a lot more. And I think there might be, just because right now with the Cardinals, they had 4 players initially test, and now it's up to 10, I believe. So there's still possibility that there could be even more after this 10 that come out. Yadier Molina was probably the most recognizable, I guess, of the team. Everybody, knows him. But yeah, so the Cardinals fit in there with the Marlins, as they also should spot the opposing team 2 runs and they don't get a runner on second. I think that should be a rule. If you don't have control of your team and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, you get punished. And that would be my judgment as the commissioner.
I agree with that. As you go down in the NL Central, obviously, like I said, the Cardinals aren't playing. It's affected some of those other teams. Still, a lot of them are still playing under 500. So that's a tough one. The Reds, if they can get their bullpen in action, I picked them in my playoffs. Trevor Bauer still pitching really well. ERA under 1 after almost 20 innings pitched. His whip is .57. 32 strikeouts.
Yeah, he's having a really good year. And he knows it too. He's strutting around the mound, but he deserves to be strutting.
We're going to see as time goes on, will they stay with that? Can they? I think Trevor Bauer can. Sonny Gray, he's got 35 strikeouts after 4 games. He's 3-1, 2.25 ERA. So it's a decent ERA.
We've talked about the Reds and the Indians being in Ohio, being the K capital. But an interesting thing that happened is Zach Plesac made a really bad choice, went out with friends in Chicago when they were playing the White Sox, and he was sent home. The Indians sent him home, and Cleveland said, go back to Cleveland. You are quarantined from the team, and he has to test negative 2 times before he can return. So it's possible he won't miss a start, but he might miss a start, and then that could, throw the rotation into a tailspin.
Right, and he's been pitching well for them, but that's a good thing in that it shows they could have just said, don't do it again, and been quiet about it, but they're taking the action. And he very well could have gone in there, and we could have seen the Indians and that's the bad part. It only takes one guy to do it and go in and infect the whole clubhouse.
Right. One
person can do that. We know that it's not happening on the field, so it has to happen in more enclosed spaces, and it's good for the Indians for calling him out on that.
Yeah.
That's what we needed. That's the only way that this season, in a time where We're starting to see, we saw players opting out at a deadline for the NFL.
Mhm.
We heard that the college football, the big conferences, with the exception of the SEC, have all seemingly voted to say, no, we're not going to play, or we're going to push it to the spring. We're not hearing that much out of the bubbles. We know that NBA games are going on. We know that the MLS was doing. We know that that hockey, all in their bubbles, but you're not hearing as much about it. Part of it's probably because I'm not watching much of that. I'm watching as much baseball as I can. When somebody tweets or posts, well, that was, especially after the Cardinals were testing positive, or some of those, well, that was fun. I
Yeah.
enjoyed the weekend of baseball I got to watch, which
They
was
just
after the
give up.
Marlins, or way to go, Cardinals, now we're done. People are real quick to say that. And honestly, I'm part of it. I almost feel like maybe they should just, but not because of coronavirus, because the game has not been great overall.
Right.
There's been things that have been great. Those moments like Dylan Bundy's complete game, that was a great moment. Mike Trout hitting a couple home runs after he comes back from the birth of his child. That's great. Grand slam from someplace. Every time the Asterix get beat.
That's
Every
great.
time Jose Altuve makes an error. Those are the great things. But will we get past that? Will this chaos, this insanity break up? Or will we just have a substandard season based on just the craziness of it all? And that'll do it for this week's Sibling Rivalry Baseball podcast.
Remember, you can find us on our website, siblingrivalrybb.com, and on Facebook and Instagram at Sibling Rivalry BB.
We're also on Twitter at Sibling Rivalry BB without the A. Email us, show@siblingrivalrybb.com. We'd love to hear what you think, so subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to our podcast.
Next week on Sibling Rivalry Baseball, the gloves come off.
But we'll keep our mask on, and I'll be wearing my Josh Field signature model mask.
Yeah!